Welcome aboard, sir. Welcome aboard, welcome aboard. No one believed him. If you are here for the first time, I am truly glad. This channel is for you, for the person who knows that life can take turns so unbelievable that even the best novel could not invent them. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, have you ever known that something was wrong, but decided to stay silent? Write about it below. And if you are already part of this community, then you know what to do. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and join me in this story. You simply will not believe what happened. Welcome aboard, sir. That was all she said. Welcome aboard, sir. And the man traveling in first class with his mistress suddenly froze, because the flight attendant greeting him with that perfect smile was not a stranger. She was his wife. Rodrigo Castilla had built his entire life on one single talent, appearing completely innocent. He drove a black SUV through the avenues of Monterrey, as if even the asphalt belonged to him. His import company made millions. His shoes were always polished to a shine. His voice was the kind that made people believe him before he even finished a sentence. His business partners called him solid, reliable, respectable. His wife, Valentina, called him home. Valentina Salas had worked for 7 years as a flight attendant on domestic routes. She woke up before dawn, ironed her uniform without anyone asking, and still always had dinner ready when Rodrigo came home late. She was not the kind of woman who made noise. She was not the kind of woman who begged anyone to stay. But she was the kind of woman who noticed everything. That was the one thing Rodrigo kept forgetting. That Tuesday morning seemed perfectly ordinary. Valentina was in the kitchen, closing her travel suitcase, when Rodrigo walked in with his phone in his hand and his tie already perfectly knotted. Leaving so early again, she asked. Meetings, he replied. You say that too often. That is what clients pay for. He kissed her on the cheek the way a man seals an envelope automatically, without even looking at it, and disappeared. Valentina watched him leave. She did not say what she was thinking. She never did. What Rodrigo had not told her, what he had not told absolutely anyone, was that he had bought 2 first-class tickets to Cartagena. And they were not for business. They were for Isabella. Isabella Fuentes was 27 years old. She had an energy that seemed to consume all the oxygen in any room, and absolutely no patience for ordinary life. She wore perfume that cost more than many people earned in a month, laughed too loudly in places where everyone else whispered, and never apologized for it. She had met Rodrigo at a corporate event on the rooftop of a luxury hotel 9 months earlier. What began as a conversation slowly turned into something far more dangerous. Now she sat across from him in a corner cafe, scrolling through photos of the resort on her phone. This one, she said, turning the screen toward him. An infinity pool. A view of the sea. Palm trees. Already booked, Rodrigo said. Isabella's eyes lit up. Seriously? Private villa. Direct flight. 5 nights. She leaned over the table and kissed him once, quickly and decisively. And Valentina? Rodrigo did not even blink. She thinks I have a conference in Guadalajara. Isabella threw her head back. You are a disaster. Then she looked at him with curiosity. She doesn't check. She never does. Rodrigo slid 2 boarding passes across the table. Isabella looked down at them, and her smile slowly grew wider. Friday flight. Destination, Cartagena. Neither of them spoke about what would happen if anyone found out. Some risks feel so distant that they stop feeling real. Across the city, Valentina Salas was about to receive news that would change everything. But she did not know it yet. That Wednesday afternoon, her supervisor called her into the office. Valentina sat in front of the desk, her hands clasped together, expecting a change in her schedule. "We are transferring you to international routes," her supervisor said. Valentina blinked. "International? Your evaluations are the highest on the team. We want you to lead first-class service on long-haul international flights." Valentina felt every word fall inside her, one after another, like drops on still water. International flights meant better layovers, better hotels, better pay. And most of all, it meant someone had noticed her. 7 years of early mornings, tired smiles, and professionalism without applause, and someone had finally seen it. Her supervisor pushed a folder across the desk. "Your first assignment is this Friday." Valentina opened the folder. She read the destination. Cartagena. A short, nervous, disbelieving laugh escaped her. "Does something seem funny?" her supervisor asked. "No," Valentina answered quickly. "It's just, my husband also mentioned that he is traveling this weekend." Her supervisor smiled. What a small world. Valentina closed the folder. She thought about calling Rodrigo right then and surprising him with the news. But something stopped her. A small, quiet instinct she could not explain. "I'll tell him when I get back," she thought. She did not know she would see him much sooner. Friday arrived without warning. Rodrigo and Isabella walked through the airport as if they had stepped off the cover of a magazine. He wore dark jeans and a grey blazer. She wore white linen and large sunglasses, like an actress from the 1970s. A porter took care of their luggage. The premium check-in line was empty. "I love airports," Isabella said, taking his arm. "Why?" "Because here, no one knows who you are yet." Rodrigo smiled. It should have sounded like a warning. In the VIP lounge, they ordered drinks. Isabella searched her phone for spa treatments at the resort. Rodrigo leaned back in his chair with the special satisfaction of a man who believed he had gotten away with everything. The boarding announcement came 20 minutes later. Flight 517 to Cartagena. First-class passengers and priority boarding are invited to board. Isabella immediately stood. "Let's go." They walked toward the gate. Passports ready. Tickets scanned. The jet bridge was quiet, glass-walled, cool, and dim. Rodrigo could almost already feel the ocean breeze. He stepped through the aircraft door. And everything stopped. Valentina was there. Perfect uniform. Neatly pinned hair. Straight posture. Warm smile. She was greeting passengers as they boarded, her voice soft and professional, exactly the way it always was at work. Rodrigo's body went completely numb. His foot literally forgot how to move. A passenger behind him accidentally bumped into him and kept walking. Rodrigo barely felt it. Isabella stepped closer. "Why did you stop?" He could not answer. Isabella followed his gaze toward the front of the cabin. "What?" she whispered. Rodrigo barely opened his mouth. The woman at the door. Isabella's hand tightened around his arm. "Is that your wife?" "She doesn't fly international routes." His voice sounded like something broken. "She never did." Isabella slowly straightened. "Well," she said, "it looks like she does now." The line kept moving. The distance between them and the door became shorter. 10 meters. 7. 4. Rodrigo told himself that maybe she would not see them. That she was busy. That there were 30 passengers, and it was impossible for her to notice everything. Then Valentina lifted her eyes. Her gaze found him in an instant. 1 second. That was all it took. Recognition passed across her face like a current under still water, invisible to anyone watching, but deafening to Rodrigo. She saw him. She saw Isabella's hand on his arm. She saw the matching suitcases. She understood everything in the time it takes to blink. And then she did the very thing that destroyed him from the inside. She smiled. Not a painful smile. Not a smile falling apart. A professional, clean, unshakable smile. "Welcome aboard, sir." Her voice did not tremble for even a fraction of a second. "Your seats are 2A and 2B, straight ahead, on the right." Rodrigo walked past his own wife without saying a word. The first-class cabin had been designed to make people feel untouchable. That night, it failed. Rodrigo sank into seat 2A and stared straight ahead. Soft leather. Golden lighting. Space. Silence. He noticed none of it. Isabella slowly fastened her seat belt beside him. "She recognized us." "Yes." She said nothing. "No." Isabella turned toward him. Her voice became quieter. "Rodrigo, that is not a good sign. She is at work. She is not going to make a scene." "I am not worried about a scene." Isabella folded her hands in her lap. "I am worried about what a woman like that does when she decides not to make one." Rodrigo did not answer. Through the narrow gap between the curtains, he watched Valentina greet the last passengers. Her posture had not changed. Her voice had not changed. She was perfect. And that frightened him more than any shouting could have. The aircraft doors closed with a soft mechanical thud. The engines began to vibrate. Rodrigo felt the slight pressure as the plane started to taxi. There was no way out. 30 minutes after takeoff, Valentina entered the first-class cabin with the service cart. With every passenger she passed, she greeted them with the same sincere warmth. She remembered which passenger had asked for still water. She asked about meal preferences. She was magnificent at her job. Rodrigo watched her from behind his screen, pretending to choose a movie. Isabella leaned closer. "She is coming. I see her. Do not do anything strange." "I am not going to do anything." Valentina reached their row. First, she looked at Rodrigo calmly and directly, with the eyes of someone who had already made an important decision. "Good evening. May I offer you something to drink?" "Water," Rodrigo said. His voice sounded weak. Valentina poured the water without a word and placed the glass on his tray table. Then she turned to Isabella. "And for you." Isabella kept her tone steady. "Champagne, please." "With pleasure." Valentina poured the drink and placed the glass down. Then she leaned slightly toward Rodrigo, just enough for only him to hear. "I hope your conference in Guadalajara goes very well." She said it quietly, softly, without drama. Then she moved on to the next row. Isabella stared at him. "What did she say to you?" Rodrigo looked straight ahead. He felt cold. The rest of the flight became a kind of punishment. Dinner was served in several courses. Isabella barely ate. Rodrigo did not touch anything. Movies played on screens that neither of them watched. "She knows," Isabella said quietly. "She suspects," Rodrigo replied. Isabella turned fully toward him. Rodrigo, believe me. She knows. And she is not crying. She is not dragging you into the galley. She is not texting you. She paused. That means she has already decided what she is going to do. Rodrigo rubbed the bridge of his nose. You are overthinking it. No. I am reading the situation. He looked toward the front of the cabin. Valentina was speaking quietly with another crew member, laughing softly at something. She looked lighter than he had seen her in months. That created a feeling in his chest he was not ready to analyze. Your wife, Isabella said quietly. Rodrigo said nothing. Because for the first time in 9 months, he began to understand that while he had been planning his escape, Valentina's silence had been turning her into someone he had never truly known. The wheels touched down in Cartagena just before sunset. The city burned orange and gold. Tourists pressed their faces to the windows. Isabella let out a visible breath of relief when the seatbelt sign turned off. We made it, Rodrigo said. She did not answer. They waited until the aisle cleared, then walked toward the exit. Of course, Valentina was standing by the door again. Their eyes met when Rodrigo came closer. He searched her face for anger. Pain. Anything familiar. She gave him none of it. Thank you for flying with us, she said clearly. Enjoy your stay. Then she looked at the passenger behind him. Rodrigo stepped off the plane. The resort was exactly as Isabella had shown it on her phone in that cafe. Infinity pool. Ocean view. White curtains moving in the wind. On the first night, Isabella stood on the balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sun sink into the Caribbean Sea. This place is perfect, she said. Rodrigo stood inside by the window, staring at his phone. No message from Valentina. No calls. Nothing. Isabella came inside. You are doing it again. She hasn't written to me. That bothers you more than if she had, doesn't it? Rodrigo put the phone down. He did not answer. Isabella sat on the edge of the bed. The silence of a woman like her is not silence, Rodrigo. It is a plan. He searched for something in the minibar and poured himself a drink. She is probably just embarrassed. She will not destroy her own life. Isabella looked at him for a long time. She already made her plan, she said quietly. She made it on that flight while she was pouring us champagne. The week passed like a slow fever, beautiful on the outside, rotten on the inside. They went to dinners, swam, and took photos that would never be posted anywhere. Isabella laughed at the right moments. Rodrigo smiled when he was supposed to. But Valentina's silence followed him everywhere. Every morning, he checked his phone. Nothing. Every night. Nothing. This is the quietest disaster I have ever been part of, Isabella said on the 5th day. Rodrigo did not argue. On the final night, they sat on the balcony, looking out at the ocean. Over the course of the week, Isabella had slowly dimmed. Less energy. More caution. I need to ask you something, she said. Ask? If Valentina really leaves, if she really removes herself from all of this, what does that mean for us? Rodrigo looked at the sea. He had no answer. Isabella nodded slowly, as if she had already expected that. That is what I thought, she said. She went inside and began packing her suitcase. They returned separately. Isabella booked an earlier flight. She hugged him at the terminal entrance, quickly, tightly, with the energy of someone closing a door behind her. Take care of yourself, Rodrigo said. He watched her leave. Then he boarded his own flight home alone. The drive from the airport to the apartment felt unreal. The elevator rose slowly. The hallway was quiet. He was already building the conversation in his head, what he would say, how Valentina would react, how they would solve it. Then he saw the envelope taped to the center of the door. His name was written in her handwriting. Rodrigo pulled it off. His hands suddenly felt like they belonged to someone else. Not exactly shaking, but not steady either. Inside were several documents with legal headings, stamps, and dates. Petition for divorce. He read every page standing in the hallway. When he pushed the door open and entered the apartment, the place was empty in a way that square meters could not explain. He walked slowly through every room. There were gaps on the bookshelves where her things had once been. The photos from their trips were gone. Only pale rectangles remained on the wall where sunlight had never reached. Her chair by the window, the one where she usually read, had disappeared. At the end, he went to the kitchen. Her wedding ring lay on the counter. Beside it was a folded piece of paper. He opened it. 4 words. You should have gone to Guadalajara. Rodrigo sat down on the kitchen floor. He did not know how long he stayed there. 3 months passed. The apartment still felt like a museum of something that had once existed. Isabella disappeared 2 weeks after they returned, a few messages, then nothing. Whatever they had shared during that week in Cartagena dissolved somewhere over the Caribbean Sea. Rodrigo threw himself into work. It helped. Until it stopped helping. One Thursday evening, he sat in the back of a taxi stuck in traffic in Monterrey. Rain ran down the windows. Music played too quietly for him to recognize. He was staring into nothing when the car stopped at a red light. Then he lifted his eyes to the digital billboard on the corner. The air left his lungs. Valentina. In monumental scale, under professional lighting, she stood inside an airplane cabin wearing a new uniform, one hand resting on the back of a seat, looking directly into the camera. She looked exactly as she had that night at the airport. Composed. Confident. Untouchable. Across the billboard were the words. Fly first. Fly different. It was the face of a new international airline campaign. The traffic light changed. The taxi moved forward. Rodrigo kept staring until the billboard disappeared behind the next building. The driver noticed the silence. Do you know her? Rodrigo did not answer immediately. He remembered that morning when she had been in the kitchen closing her suitcase while he poured coffee without looking at her. He remembered the note on the counter. He remembered how she had smiled at him at the airplane door, not with pain, not with anger, but with the calm certainty of a person who had already chosen something better. Yes, he said at last. The taxi continued moving. Earlier, he had boarded that plane believing he would get away with everything. Only now did he understand what that flight had truly done. It had not taken him on vacation. It had taken Valentina to a place where he would never be able to follow.